So how can we use technology to improve our sleep aside from, I don't know, simply not using technology right before we go to bed? Joining us to discuss this is Molly McHugh from The Ringer. How's it going, Molly?
Good. How are you guys?
Excellent. It's great to have you back. So first, you say in your article that you are a poor sleeper. Are you confident that technology is actually going to make you a better sleeper?
No, not at all. I think it can help me see the things that I know I'm doing wrong. Like, it's interesting to see it all quantified and on a screen and everything, but I'm not sold yet on something fixing it.
So you've been using, you kind of start off by explaining a product that you've been using called Bedit. I'd never actually heard of Bedit before. What exactly is going on with Bedit?
Sure. Actually, I really like it. I've tried some like wearable fitness tracker type things, and anything based on an accelerometer is not going to be super accurate because it's pretty much just like looking at how much you move, which doesn't, like, maybe that's going to be right, but not necessarily. Whereas Bedit is like a strip that kind of goes on top of your mattress under your bed sheet, and that is looking at your heart rate as well as how often you move, a couple other things like your breathing and stuff like that, and it gets a lot more information points in there in order to give you some information about your sleep.
And that all syncs back to your phone that I'm assuming is on the bedside table, probably by like Bluetooth, right?
Yeah, so I do keep my phone plugged in overnight now because it's, being zapped from Bluetooth.
Sure.
So I'd have no battery in the morning, but so yeah, that's working out well so far.
Yeah.
I was hoping that Bedit would be like a way to read Reddit in bed and not get really angry.
I do that, actually. I get in bed and I go like this.
I've mastered that.
But unfortunately, that probably ties right into the problem, right? They say don't do this right before you go to sleep. The screen, the color is bad for your eyes unless you do color correction. And I mean, speaking of kind of like app and technology kind of solutions for improving sleep, there are a ton of apps. I know at least on Android, there are a lot of apps that, say they're tracking your sleep. Meanwhile, the phone is just like sitting on your bedside table next to you. I mean, this seems to be much different than that, though, because it's kind of integrated into the pillow.
Yeah, I mean, it attaches right across the mattress, and the apps that track your sleep, if they have no sort of wearable or gadget component, are really just you tracking your sleep. You're just starting a timer when you go to bed and turning it off when you wake up, which can give you a really great trend analysis over time, but that's still just you entering data. I mean, it's like a nice bump up from a spreadsheet. It's not a huge advance in technology.
Yeah, for sure. So there is a growing market for on-demand mattresses right now. Full disclosure, Casper is a sponsor on TWiT, but I mean, there are a number of them. There's Casper, there's Lisa, Tough to Needle, Helix Sleep, a whole lot of kind of companies who are kind of using the internet distribution model for on-demand mattresses, let's say. Why, you kind of talk a little bit in your article about how this relates to kind of the millennials of the this generation of millennials. Why is this so appealing to that generation?
Yeah, the mattress stuff has blown my mind. I feel like a very old person because I went into a store and bought a mattress, when I got my first grown-up mattress a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But it's a huge thing. It's kind of a pain. I sometimes feel like the big drive of the internet is to just completely get rid of brick and mortar stores. And this is one that it's not fun to go to. It's not like a big fun purchase that you go out and make and it's exciting. It's kind of boring and it's not very cool. And there is a lot of markup, absolutely. So cutting all of that out and then packaging it in these very trendy, very cool websites with very active social media presences is a totally new spin on a very old industry. And then add to that you can stay inside and order all of this from an app. And like, we're very programmed to do that. It's very second nature to like fire up Postmates or something like that. So if that entire if the entire application sequence looks a lot like Postmates or Seamless or, Uber, if those things look similar, we're super comfortable doing that. So it becomes very easy to drop $500 to $1,000 on something that shows up in a box.
Mm-hmm. It'd be great if there was actually like an Uber for mattresses where you could just share your mattress when you weren't using it.
Right?
No.
Like maybe gross, but there's
was okay.
some potential here. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, maybe. That's the future.
But I think if anyone could figure it out, Silicon Valley could probably figure out how to make that a viable
someone's
market.
I'm sure that was pitched at a demo day last week.
So in what way do you think like the technology is sort of, I mean, there's been lots of studies, there's studies upon studies that say, that technology right before bed is bad for us. But then there's other people who say there's no long-term studies. But in what way does this feel like technology has created this problem and now they get to solve it too?
Right. I mean, like you said, the studies are kind of jury's out and people argue about it. I definitely think it's made it worse. Just like I used to be able to read all of I'd get into a book and read that and it would keep me up. Now I'll just do that with Instagram or Snapchat or something, and I'll sit there and do that for an hour longer than I should. But then the industry totally turns on its head and says, all right, we have this problem. We still want you to keep your smartphone near your bed, and we want you to be reading the internet and consuming the internet and using our apps as much as possible. So here are all these other solutions in order to better understand your sleep and then, go out and fix it yourself. But it's also part of this like human optimization so we can be perfect kind of thing that's going on that Quantified Self has completely sold us on.
Quantified Self definitely has. We talked about that a little bit. I think it was yesterday about how yesterday or the day before about how Quantified Self seems on paper. It seems like such a great thing. We have access to all this information. So why wouldn't we want to collect it and improve ourselves? But I think the underlying problem, one of my questions for you is just that, there are blurred lines when you get into this kind of world of like medical need versus not. They can't actually advertise, some of these technological products as, solving a medical need because that would bring in a bunch of, kind of regulation and all sorts of other things. But does the consumer actually know the difference? Do they actually know what to do with all of this Quantified Self stuff? It's one thing to get this information, but how does it actually improve the scenario?
I think you have to be a really driven person in order to use Quantified Self so that it actually improves you, because for the most part, the things on the market now that are at least the most popular and consumer facing are just bringing in the data and then you have to act on it. There aren't things that we're doing a lot of yet that, you can change by pressing a button and suddenly your body performs better in some way. I talked a little bit about how some things are trying to do this with some, brain altering, mood altering technology. But those are still, there's a lot of people who have questions about them. They're not FDA cleared because, like you said, that makes it a lot more difficult to get these through and sell them. So they're super experimental and we're not sure how well they work, if they work long-term yet, but they're super interesting. I'm not saying they're wrong. We don't really know yet. So for the most part, it's kind of on you once you buy into Quantified Self stuff to actually improve anything. Like I know my sleep is bad now and I have a lot of information on why it's not great, but I don't know how to fix it yet.
Well, yeah, one of those devices I think that you looked into is called the Think, THYNC. It's a $200 device. What does that do? How does that help you sleep?
So I used that a couple years ago and it was at CES. I'm super interested in it, but not sure about it yet. And it has this kind of one piece that connects to your temple, and then the other piece, you're controlling it via your smartphone, and you're basically sending these vibrations to your head. I would describe it as it feels like there's a gear tightening inside your brain a little bit. You can turn it on higher or lower, and one set of vibrations gets you energized. The other set is supposed to calm you down. So they talked about how it's something you might use instead of sleeping pills or some other form of sleep aid. But I didn't try that one. I tried the energetic one because I was very tired that day.
So instead of coffee, maybe.
Yeah.
Gosh, I look at that and hearing you explain it, it just reminds me of like, when I was a kid looking through like little catalog or like in the back of a comic book, let's say, and it has that page of these things that do crazy things and totally believe that it works, but I don't know that it does. And I mean, that's kind of an interesting transition into one thought that I had, which is that, for the longest time, the way that you tackled these issues, if you had sleep issues, a very popular solution was, okay, well, we will prescribe to you this sleep medicine to kind of tackle the issue, and that doesn't always solve the problem. It's you point out in the article it's a short-term fix. It's not a long-term fix, but isn't it kind of like we're just replacing one kind of fix with another fix? And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something at the core of this that we're missing. I'm just not quite sure how effective it is.
Yeah, I mean, benzodiazepines, they're not great for you long term. And I think, I mean, there's more harm that's going to come from overprescribing than people buying a bunch of Fitbits or other devices to track their sleep. I think the argument for this is that, sure, we might like be being over marketed to a little bit, and we might be over datafying and not really doing anything with that data. So, I mean, maybe there's like a, are we being marketed too much? Are we being sold on something that's not helping us? But the addiction to a Fitbit versus like a sleeping aid is definitely going to be better for you in the long term, I would say. Yeah. But once it's things that are altering our brains, there haven't been many like peer-reviewed studies beyond like the companies who are doing this are doing studies themselves that are very interesting, but there haven't been any long-term peer-reviewed studies of what these will do. So until those happen, we should probably not make that leap quite yet.
Be somewhat cautious, I suppose.
Yes.
Molly McHugh at theringer.com. Thank you so much for coming back and chatting with us about this very interesting article. Where can people follow you online?
I'm at I am Molly McHugh.
Awesome. On Twitter. Thanks again, Molly. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.